The rain-slick streets of Camden, New Jersey, glistened like a broken promise under the sodium glow of streetlights. Inside the towering glass fortress of Apex Global Dynamics, the lobby was a battlefield of ambition, where polished shoes clacked against black marble and the air hummed with the buzz of corporate warfare. It was 6:47 a.m. on a bone-chilling Thursday, and the cleaning crew, those unsung phantoms of the night, were wrapping up their shift, invisible as ever. Nobody noticed them. Nobody ever noticed them. Except today, someone would. And that someone was about to unravel a secret that would shake the company to its core. Luz Rivera, a 42-year-old custodian with a sharp jawline and a bun tighter than the company's budget, was mopping the lobby floor with the precision of a surgeon. Her burgundy uniform was faded, her work boots scuffed, but her eyes burned with a quiet defiance that nobody bothered to see. She'd been at Apex for 17 years, scrubbing toilets, wiping down boardrooms, and dodging the egos of suits who treated her like furniture. To them, she was background noise, elevator music in human form. But Luz was no ordinary cleaner. She was a linguistic chameleon, a secret weapon hiding in plain sight. And today, her cover was about to blow wide open. The lobby was alive with the usual chaos: execs barking into earbuds, interns clutching coffee like lifelines, and the faint clatter of keyboards plotting global domination. Luz was halfway through her last sweep when a delivery driver in a soaked parka stumbled in, looking like he'd just survived a shipwreck. He was Korean, his face etched with panic as he waved a crumpled invoice at the receptionist, who stared back with the blank terror of someone who only spoke English and corporate jargon. The driver's voice rose, urgent, spilling rapid-fire Hangul that echoed off the marble. Luz paused, her mop dripping. She could have kept her head down. 17 years taught her that blending in was safer, but something snapped. Maybe it was the driver's desperation, or maybe she was just tired of being a ghost. She dropped her mop against the wall and strode over. "안녕하세요," she said, her Korean crisp as fresh kimchi. The driver's eyes widened. She gestured calmly, her voice low but firm, guiding him through the delivery protocol. Within minutes, he was nodding, relieved, muttering "감사합니다" as he headed for the freight elevator. Luz turned back to her mop, but the air had shifted. A man in a tailored charcoal suit stood frozen near the elevators, his espresso cup tilted like he'd forgotten physics. Victor Navarro, Apex's CEO, was a shark in human form, ruthless, charismatic, and perpetually on the hunt for the next big win. He'd just returned from a botched deal in Busan, where his translator had turned a $1 million contract into a diplomatic disaster. Now, his hazel eyes locked on Luz like she was a puzzle he hadn't been told to solve. He'd seen her before, hadn't he? Late nights, passing her in the halls, her head down, her cart rattling. Just another cleaner. But cleaners didn't speak Korean like they'd grown up in Seoul. Victor's brain churned, recalculating. Before he could stop himself, he was crossing the lobby, his loafers squeaking. "Excuse me," he said, his voice a mix of curiosity and command. Luz turned, her expression a fortress. "Yes, sir." "That was Korean," he said, testing her. "Correct." Her tone was neutral, but her eyes said, "Get to the point." "And you speak it fluently?" "Fluently enough to save your delivery guy from a meltdown." Victor's lips twitched, caught off guard. "What else do you speak?" She sighed, like she was confessing to a minor crime. "Spanish, French, Mandarin, Russian, Arabic, Portuguese, Bengali, Yoruba, and I mess around with Old Norse for fun, but it's not exactly cocktail party material." His jaw didn't drop, but it wanted to. 10 languages? Most of his VPs struggled with basic Spanish Duolingo streaks. "What's your name?" "Luz Rivera." "Ms. Rivera, can you come to my office? Now." Her grip tightened on the mop handle. Here we go, she thought. Another suit with a savior complex, probably about to offer her a pat on the head and a $50 gift card. But Victor's face wasn't patronizing. It was hungry, like he'd stumbled on a gold mine. She nodded, wary. "All right." The elevator ride was a pressure cooker of silence. Luz stood rigid, her boots leaving faint smudges on the mirrored floor. Victor, usually a master of small talk, was uncharacteristically quiet, his mind racing. "You've been here a while, haven't you?" he finally asked. 17 years, she said, her voice edged with sarcasm. "Long enough to know where all the bodies are buried. Metaphorically, of course." He chuckled, but it was uneasy. The doors slid open to the 22nd floor, a sterile cathedral of glass and power. It smelled like leather and unspoken deals. Victor's assistant, a nervous 20-something named Kyle who looked like he lived on Red Bull and anxiety, gaped at Luz's uniform. Victor waved him off and led her into his office, a shrine to ambition with a mahogany desk, a world map bristling with pins, and a framed photo of his pet falcon, Machiavelli. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a leather chair. Luz sat, her hands folded, scanning the room like a spy. Victor leaned forward, his elbows on the desk. "Let's cut the corporate BS. How does someone who speaks 10 languages end up cleaning my floors?" Luz's smirk was sharp enough to draw blood. "You want the gritty origin story or the PG-13 version?" "I can handle gritty," he said, though his inbox was screaming for mercy. She exhaled, her voice dropping to a low, raw register. "Born in the Bronx, single mom, dad split before I could spell my name. Mom worked 3 jobs, laundry, daycare, late-night diner shifts. We were broke, but she drilled education into me like it was oxygen. I was the nerdy kid who haunted libraries, teaching myself languages from stolen textbooks and sketchy internet forums. Got a full ride to NYU, linguistics major, was halfway through a master's when mom got sick. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. I dropped out to care for her. She died 6 months later. Then I had my daughter, no partner, no savings. Life's a cruel son of a bitch, you know? Took whatever work I could, gas stations, warehouses, this gig. Nights meant I could tuck my kid in. That's the math." Victor's face was unreadable, but his chest tightened. Her story wasn't just a resume gap, it was a war zone. "But you kept learning languages?" "Had to," she said, her eyes glinting with defiance. "It's my middle finger to the universe. Keeps me sharp while I'm scrubbing your exec's whiskey stains off the carpet." He winced. "Damn. Nobody ever asked about this? People see the uniform and assume I'm dumb," she said, her voice flat. "It's easier to write me off than to wonder why I'm here." The silence was heavy, like a storm cloud ready to burst. Victor grabbed a notepad, scribbling furiously. "What's that?" Luz asked, squinting. "Ideas," he said, his voice tight. "Big ones. But big ideas in a corporate snake pit come with big risks." And Luz was about to step into a game she didn't sign up for. That afternoon, Victor couldn't shake Luz from his mind. While his team bickered over shipping routes, he kept replaying her voice, 10 languages, delivered like it was no big deal. Most of his global ops team couldn't handle a single foreign client without a translator app crashing. By 5 p.m., he was in the basement, where the air was thick with bleach and despair. The custodial supply room was a dungeon of mops and broken dreams, and Luz was there, restocking rags with the focus of a sniper. "Got a minute?" Victor asked, leaning against the doorframe. She didn't look up. "You slumming it down here, Navarro? Need me to polish your ego?" He grinned, undeterred. "Need a favor. Our Beijing team's in early, and our translator bailed. Can you handle Mandarin?" She tossed a rag onto the shelf. "Can you handle not tracking mud on my floors?" "Fair point. You in?" She sighed, wiping her hands. "Fine. But if this is some corporate stunt, I'm out." Minutes later, Luz was in conference room 7B, facing 4 Chinese execs who looked like they'd rather be negotiating with a brick wall. She launched into Mandarin, her tone smooth but laced with just enough edge to command the room. The execs' postures shifted, shoulders relaxing, eyes sharpening. When one cracked a dry joke about jet lag, Luz fired back with a quip about Camden's potholes that had them chuckling. Victor watched from the corner, his coffee forgotten. She wasn't just translating, she was owning the room, bridging cultures with the ease of a seasoned diplomat. After the meeting, one exec pulled Victor aside. "She's better than anyone we've worked with in years." "Where'd you find her?" "Right here," Victor said, glancing at Luz, who was already stacking water bottles like nothing had happened. Back in the hallway, he caught up with her. "Ever done professional translation?" "Nope," she said, her voice dry. "Just helped folks at clinics, courthouses, places where the system chews you up if you don't speak the lingo." "Your daughter, she's okay now?" Luz's face softened, a rare crack in her armor. "Yeah, 22, studying biology in Boston. Kid's gonna cure cancer or something, but she's stubborn as hell. Like her mom." Victor nodded, his mind racing. "You're not just a translator, Luz. You're a goddamn superpower." She snorted. "Save the TED Talk, Navarro. I've got floors to finish." But Victor wasn't letting this go. That night he sat in his Audi, staring at the Apex Tower. He'd spent a decade chasing global talent, yet the sharpest mind in his building was mopping floors. The irony was thicker than his board's expense accounts. But what he didn't know was that Luz's rise was about to ignite a corporate conspiracy that could bring them both down. The next morning, Luz's badge beeped at the wrong time. She was wiping down a lobby touchscreen when her supervisor, a gruff ex-cop named Sal who smelled like menthols and regret, tapped her shoulder. "Navarro wants you upstairs. Again." "Did I screw something up?" she asked, half joking. "Nah, but you're giving me a headache," Sal muttered. The executive suite felt less like a palace and more like a lion's den this time. Whispers trailed her like smoke, and the receptionist gave her a look that screamed, "What are you doing here?" Victor was by the window, sipping black coffee like a noir detective. "Luz, I've been up all night thinking," he said, turning. "We're bleeding talent because we don't look at people like you. That ends now." She crossed her arms. "You pitching a feel-good campaign or something real?" "Real," he said, his voice steel. "New role, global cultural architect. You'd handle international clients, contracts, cultural missteps we've been screwing up for years. You're overqualified, and I'm done pretending otherwise." Luz's breath caught, but her face stayed guarded. "You're serious?" "As a heart attack. I don't have a degree. Or a LinkedIn profile. You've got 10 languages and more grit than my entire C-suite. I'd bet on you over a Harvard grad any day." She smirked, but her mind was spinning. "People will lose their shit." "Let them," Victor said. "You in?" Luz hesitated, her thoughts a montage of aching knees, midnight bus rides, and co-workers who never learned her name. She'd spent years invisible, swallowing her pride to keep the lights on. This was a door she never dared imagine. "What about my shift? Who's cleaning your messes?" "We'll hire someone," Victor said. "Nobody replaces you." She exhaled, her eyes fierce. "All right, Navarro. But if this crashes and burns, I'm haunting you." They shook hands, a pact sealed in blood and possibility. But in a company like Apex, possibility comes with predators. By Monday, the news had spread like a virus. Luz Rivera, the janitor, was now a global architect. Cubicles crackled with gossip, and the break room was a cauldron of whispers. Two analysts hovered over vending machine sandwiches, their voices low. "I've got an MBA from Wharton," one hissed. "I've been here 6 years, and she gets a corner office?" "Navarro's playing woke chess," the other scoffed. "Bet she's gone by Q4. Luz felt the venom the second she stepped into her new office. A modest space with a desk, a wilting fern, and a view of Camden's gray skyline. HR handed her a new badge and a clothing stipend, but she kept her old uniform, folded in her drawer like a war trophy. Her first meeting was with Marcus Tate, head of international ops, who greeted her with a handshake so cold it could have frozen vodka. "So, you're the language wizard," he said, his smile a thinly veiled sneer. "I've got contracts from Lagos, a vendor crisis in Dhaka, and a stalled deal in Sao Paulo. Think you can hack it?" Luz leaned back, unfazed. "Give me till noon. I'll have your fixes." Marcus blinked, thrown. Luz dove into the files, her brain slicing through translations like a machete. By 11:45, she'd flagged errors in 4 contracts, drafted a solution for Sao Paulo, and called out a cultural blunder in the Lagos deal that would have cost millions. Marcus didn't thank her, but his silence was deafening. That night, Victor stopped by. "Day 1 survive?" Luz exhaled, her chair creaking. Barely. Tate's got a stick so far up his ass it's a medical condition. Victor laughed. He'll come around. Why me Luz? You could have given me a bonus and called it a day. He leaned against the doorframe. I was you once. Kid from a nowhere town, overlooked because I didn't have the right pedigree. I see you, Luz. And I'm done letting diamonds stay buried. She nodded, her throat tight. This better not be a mirage. It's not, he said. But it's a fight. You ready? She smirked. Born ready. But the fight was about to get uglier than either of them expected. The backlash came fast, like a storm nobody saw brewing. By Wednesday, Luz was summoned to a meeting, not by Victor, but by Claudia Reinhardt, a senior board member who'd flown in from Chicago. Claudia was a corporate legend, with a reputation for gutting careers like a fishmonger. Her office on the 25th floor was a mausoleum of power, all sharp angles and Arctic white. She sat behind a glass desk, her silver bob gleaming like a blade. Sit, Claudia said, not looking up from a stack of papers. Luz sat, her spine steel. Claudia tapped her pen, her eyes cold. No degree, no corporate experience, no certifications. You were a janitor 3 weeks ago. Explain why you're handling high-stakes international deals. Luz didn't flinch. Because I speak the languages, read the cultures, and already saved you $2 million in bad contracts. Check the Sao Paulo file if you're curious. Claudia's lips pursed, a rare crack in her armor. You think fluency makes you qualified? I think results do, Luz said, her voice a quiet blade. I don't need to be loved, but I'm damn useful. Claudia stood, closing her folder with a snap. You're a gamble, Rivera. And I don't like gambles. I've been one my whole life, Luz said, standing. Bet on me. She walked out, her pulse pounding, but the real threat was lurking elsewhere. Marcus Tate wasn't just skeptical, he was plotting. He'd been gunning for Victor's job for years, and Luz's rise was the perfect leverage. In a dimly lit bar across town, Marcus met with a shadowy figure from a rival firm, slipping them a dossier on Luz. She's Navarro's pet project, he whispered. Take her down, you cripple him. Back at Apex, Luz was oblivious to the noose tightening. She threw herself into work, charming a Nigerian delegation with flawless Yoruba, catching a typo in a Bengali contract that saved a deal, and mentoring an intern named Aisha who stuttered through presentations. The office began to shift. Some saw her as a hero, others a threat. One morning, a note appeared under her door, unsigned. I was invisible too. You give me hope. Thank you. Luz stared at it, her eyes stinging, but she didn't cry. She couldn't afford to. Then came the bombshell. On Friday, an anonymous email blasted the company, accusing Luz of falsifying her skills and hinting at a scandalous past. Whispers turned to stares, and even Victor's allies wavered. Luz's office felt like a cage. She confronted Victor, her voice low. You know this is bullshit, right? I do, he said, his jaw tight. But someone's playing dirty. We need to find out who. Luz's gut churned. She'd fought too hard to be dragged down by corporate vipers. That night, she stayed late, digging through old files, her instincts screaming. She found it buried in a server, a trail of emails between Marcus and the rival firm, plotting to sabotage her. But exposing it would mean risking everything: her job, her daughter's stability, her fragile new life. The next morning, Luz walked into the boardroom, uninvited, where Victor and Claudia were locked in a heated debate. Marcus was there, smirking like a fox in a henhouse. Luz dropped the printed emails on the table, her voice steady. Marcus is selling us out to Apex's competitors. Check the timestamps. I'm not the scandal, he is. The room froze. Marcus's face drained of color. Claudia snatched the papers, her eyes narrowing as she read. Victor's gaze met Luz's, a silent well done. Marcus stammered, but the evidence was ironclad. By noon, he was escorted out, his career in ashes. But the damage lingered. Luz's reputation was bruised, and the board was rattled. Claudia pulled her aside. You're still a gamble, Rivera. Prove me wrong. Luz nodded, her fire reignited. She doubled down, streamlining deals, mentoring staff, and launching Spark Within, a program to train overlooked workers, drivers, clerks, cleaners, in skills like hers. One day, Victor renamed the training room the Rivera Hub. No fanfare, just a plaque. Interns whispered, "Who's Rivera?" A senior staffer answered, "Someone who proved you don't need a suit to be a legend." Then came the summit. Luz was invited to speak at a logistics conference in Pittsburgh, her first public stage. She told her story, not as a fairy tale but a gut punch. "I was never just a janitor. I was ready. You're missing brilliance if you don't look past the uniform." The crowd stood, roaring. A young man approached her, tears in his eyes. "My mom's a maid, speaks 6 languages. I'm not ashamed anymore." Luz hugged him. "Never be. She's a queen. So are you." Back at Apex, Luz found a final note on her desk, unsigned, "We see you. Keep shining." She smiled, her old badge in her pocket, her heart full. She hadn't just survived, she'd rewritten the rules. And as she walked out, the Camden skyline glittering, Luz knew she'd keep building ladders for every invisible soul waiting to soar.